Welcome back to AOF Market Intelligence, powered by AI. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the Canadian real estate market. But with a twist, we're going beyond those national trends to zero in on a city that's really catching the eye of savvy investors. Edmonton, Alberta.
Interesting. What I find so fascinating about Edmonton is how it's defying that national narrative. While a lot of markets are cooling down, Edmonton is showing some signs of a potential boom. We've got reports from Altus Group, BMO, news articles from the National Post, CBC, even some political commentary, and it all seems to point in the same direction.
Interesting. Okay, so let's jump right in. You mentioned Altus Group. What are their reports telling us about the Edmonton market?
Their data shows some pretty incredible growth. For example, single-family home sales in Edmonton saw a pretty dramatic year-over-year increase in 2024. That's really striking when you consider that nationally, resale house prices have been trending downward since their peak in early 2022.
So Edmonton's bucking the trend. What's driving that difference?
One key factor is the influx of people moving to Alberta from other parts of Canada. Altus Group highlights this interprovincial migration as a major driver of housing demand. In fact, just in the third quarter of 2024, Alberta saw a net inflow of over 10,000 people. Imagine the impact that has on the need for housing.
Yeah, that makes sense. More people, more demand, which could push up prices. But is this just a buying and selling opportunity? Or is there a potential for rental income as well?
The Altus Group report also shows a surge in rental rates in Edmonton, making it a very attractive option for those seeking passive income. This high demand for rentals is fueled by that same population growth we talked about. It's a classic case of supply and demand.
So we're seeing strong market appreciation and rising rental rates, both driven by this population growth. That paints a pretty optimistic picture for Edmonton. But let's zoom out a bit. What about the bigger economic factors at play here?
That's where the BMO report comes in. It highlights a recent decision by the Bank of Canada that could be a game changer for real estate investors. They've dropped interest rates.
I see where you're going with this. Lower interest rates usually make it easier for people to borrow money, which could stimulate the real estate market even further.
Exactly. And this isn't just speculation. The report specifically links these lower rates to increased investment activity in real estate.
So we've got positive local market trends combined with favorable national economic policy. But we live in a globalized world. What about international factors that could impact the Canadian economy?
You're right. We can't ignore the global context. And there's actually some good news on that front. Remember the trade tensions we've been seeing with the U.S.? You included a CBC News article about Trump's decision to pause tariffs on Canadian goods.
Oh, yes, I remember that. It was a big relief for many businesses who were worried about the impact of those tariffs.
Absolutely. That pause injects a dose of much-needed stability into the Canadian economy, which can only benefit investors looking at a long-term play like real estate. The CBC article really highlighted the anxiety businesses were feeling, so this pause provides some breathing room.
Okay, so we've got national and international forces aligning in a positive direction for Canada, and especially for a hot market like Edmonton. But what about the political landscape, specifically what's happening in Alberta that investors should be aware of?
You can't talk about Alberta without mentioning Premier Danielle Smith. She's been a vocal advocate for the province's interests, particularly in the energy sector, and you included an article by her in the National Post that lays out her vision.
I did. It was interesting to read her perspective firsthand. She seems to be pushing for policies that could boost the provincial economy.
Exactly. She's advocating for things like pipeline development and promoting Alberta's resources on a national stage. These initiatives could have a ripple effect on the entire province, including the real estate market in Edmonton.
So from what we've discussed so far, Edmonton seems to have a lot going for it. A hot local market, supportive national economic policies, a favorable international trade environment, and a provincial leader who's actively championing economic growth. Is that a fair summary?
It is.
Let's zoom in on some key market segments using those insightful Altus Group reports you provided.
Okay, so they broke down the data for both single-family homes and condominiums. What did they find?
The trends are quite different for each. Single-family homes are experiencing a surge in sales in Edmonton, showing an impressive year-over-year increase in 2024. It's defying the national trend of cooling prices.
Yeah, I remember reading about that in the report. It seemed like quite a significant difference. Why is that happening? Remember those interprovincial migrants we talked about? Many of them are families seeking more space and affordability, and Edmonton offers a much more attractive price point compared to larger cities like Toronto or Vancouver. That's fueling the demand for single-family homes.
That makes sense. Edmonton does have that reputation for being very family-friendly. What about condominiums? Are they experiencing the same growth?
Actually, the report indicates that condo sales are showing signs of weakening, and not just in Edmonton, but across Canada. This suggests that the preferences of those moving to Edmonton might be shifting away from condo living.
So for investors looking at Edmonton, it seems like single-family homes might be the better bet right now.
That's a possible interpretation, yes. It aligns with the current trends and the demographics of those migrating to the city. But it's always wise to consider individual investment goals and risk tolerance.
You're right, it's never a one-size-fits-all situation. Now, aside from buying and selling, we talked earlier about the potential of the rental market in Edmonton. What insights did those reports offer on that front?
The Altus Group report revealed that purpose-built rental projects are booming across Canada, and Edmonton is no exception. This points to a growing trend of people opting for the flexibility and convenience of renting rather than buying.
Yeah, I can see that happening, especially with the current economic uncertainties and the rising cost of homeownership. Does this mean that rental properties are a good investment opportunity in Edmonton?
The report shows that rental rates are climbing in Edmonton, making it an increasingly lucrative option for investors. The combination of high demand and limited supply is creating a very favorable environment for rental income in the city.
From everything we've discussed so far, it seems like Edmonton has a lot of things working in its favor. Strong population growth, a relatively affordable housing market, and a government that's actively promoting economic development. Are those the key factors shaping the long-term outlook?
They are certainly key ingredients in the mix. And while there are always short-term uncertainties in any market, the long-term fundamentals for Edmonton appear strong. These factors suggest that the city could be well-positioned for sustained growth in the coming years.
Welcome back to AOF Market Intelligence, powered by AI.
We're wrapping up our deep dive into the Edmonton real estate market.
And I'm ready to talk strategy. We've covered a lot of ground: market trends, economic influences, even specific neighborhoods, and the impact of infrastructure. So now, how do we translate all of this information into action? What are some potential investment approaches for Edmonton?
One option could be to capitalize on Edmonton's strong potential for long-term appreciation with a classic buy-and-hold strategy.
That makes sense given the consistent population growth we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Investors could target those family-friendly neighborhoods with high demand for single-family homes. Holding on to those properties for several years could allow them to ride the wave of appreciation.
So a long-term play focused on those in-demand areas. What other approaches could investors consider?
Another strategy could be to leverage the hot rental market we've been seeing in Edmonton.
The Altus Group reports showed those rental rates climbing steadily.
Absolutely. Investors could purchase properties specifically with the goal of generating passive income from rentals.
And where would they focus those investments?
Targeting areas close to universities or employment hubs would be a smart move. Those demographics are more likely to rent, ensuring a steady stream of tenants.
So playing into the specific needs and preferences of those key demographics, that's a good point. Now, aside from long-term rentals, what about the potential for short-term rentals in Edmonton?
That's an interesting avenue to explore. Platforms like Airbnb are becoming increasingly popular, and Edmonton's tourism industry is steadily growing.
So there's a potential market for short-term stays. What kind of properties would work best for that approach?
Investors could consider properties that would appeal to tourists or business travelers. Locations near attractions downtown or the airport could be particularly attractive.
It sounds like there are a lot of different options for investors in Edmonton, depending on their individual goals and risk tolerance.
That's right. But regardless of the chosen strategy, there's one thing that's absolutely crucial: conducting thorough due diligence.
Oh, absolutely. What does that involve in the context of real estate investment?
It means doing your homework, researching neighborhoods, analyzing property values, and understanding the legal aspects of real estate investment in Alberta.
And I imagine consulting with professionals is key as well.
Definitely. Financial advisors and real estate agents can provide invaluable guidance and expertise.
So a combination of thorough research and seeking expert advice. That's a solid foundation for any investment decision. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from market trends and economic factors to investment strategies and the role of technology. It's been a fascinating exploration of the Edmonton real estate landscape.
It certainly has. Edmonton presents a unique blend of opportunities and challenges, and understanding the dynamics at play is key for any investor.
As we conclude our deep dive into Edmonton real estate, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Edmonton offers a compelling mix of market opportunities and a supportive environment for real estate investment. But success requires a strategic approach, thorough research, and a willingness to stay informed.
It's about understanding the interplay of local and national trends, economic policies, and those ever-changing market dynamics. This has been AOF Market Intelligence, powered by AI. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy investing.